This is the 2026 Brentwood Budget Public Hearing. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you for coming. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot that so many of you show up to discuss and review the budget with us. Really appreciate that. I also want to kind of acknowledge and thank some people. First, the town administrator helped me immensely pulling data together for this, as well as the chair of the select board, Mr. Kleiman, department heads, and of course my budget peers. And I also want to thank my wife, Laura, who I think is here, for putting up with me in the endless hours playing with these spreadsheets to get this done for tonight. I'd also like to now have each one of my committee members, and again, thank them for the hours and time that they put in on this budget. If we could just introduce ourselves.
Gabby Kelly.
Dan Abear from the Swayze School Board.
Michelle Sudit, Secretary of the Committee.
I'm Jim Hasher, I'm the chair.
Letty Bedard, Select Board Rep.
Kathy Morawski.
Alina Rita.
Okay, so the purpose of tonight's meeting is we'll be presenting the proposed fiscal year 2026 municipal budget, trying to compare and explain changes from the 2025 budget. I'll be going over tax impacts, which are required by law that we give a tax impact, as well as a tax effort estimate based on the 2026 budget. Obviously, to receive public comment and input on the budget from you. This hearing is held pursuant to RSA 32.5, paragraph 1. And it's important to note that no final budget decisions are made tonight. The legislative body will do that at the town meeting on March 14th, 2026. However, once we close this meeting this evening, the budget will be closed and no other changes will be made. Although we are allowed, if there is feedback and we want to make a change to the budget this evening, it does count as having because it is done at the hearing, we would not have to have a second hearing. So this evening, I'll be going over the town operating budget, which basically will show all of the budget accounts. We'll look at some details on the larger budget accounts and items. And again, looking at comparisons from the previous year and the tax impacts of all of those budget items. And then we'll be looking at warrant articles, the purposes and appropriations, as well as the tax impact. We'll be reviewing the Swayze school budget in a comparison to 2025 and its tax impact. And then I'll be looking at the co-op budget, which we do not have purview on, but I'll be reporting on the co-op budget that will be presented to the voters, and then an estimate of the county assessment, as well as the state ed tax and all of it, and calculate the tax impacts of those, and then finish up with an estimated tax effort based on this 2026 budget. So I wanted to just go over how kind of the process of developing this budget. This year, the Budget Committee discussed and approved sending a public statement to the Select Board Chair in June detailing a process for collaboratively developing the 2026 budget. This committee felt it was a sound approach, and it was especially important given that it was the first year of a taxpayer mandated tax cap. Basically, what we did this year, the department heads submitted their requests to the Select Board. The Select Board reviewed those requests with department heads, and then they approved and proposed those budgets to the Budget Committee. We then reviewed those Select Board proposed budgets, and we are allowed to adjust or change those budgets if needed. We vote on and approve the final budget that is being presented to you tonight, and then will be presented at town meeting. This public hearing allows you, the residents, to provide us input on the budget before the town meeting. And like I said, once this hearing is closed, the budget will be finalized and the Budget Committee delivers that approved budget and warrant article recommendations to the Select Board for posting. I want to make sure, I just want to explain the difference between when we talk about tax impact and tax effort. The tax impact, again, is something that is required by RSA 32.5, paragraph 5B. And it's basically looking at, the DRA calls it a three-finger rule, but you're looking at any appropriation or a change in appropriation, and you divide it by the current assessed property values. So what it's doing is actually estimating the change to the tax rate of any appropriation that's being proposed, or a change in appropriation based on this year, 2025's tax rate. Tax effort, and I'll get more on this when we get to the end, but the tax effort is basically trying to estimate the 2026 tax rate and impacts of appropriations and assessments on the bill that we'll be getting in the fall. And to do that, there's assumptions that need to be made, and I'll talk about those assumptions later on in this presentation. First is the town operating budget. For fiscal year 2026, the operating budget is $6,413,964, which is a reduction of $358,004, or 5.3% from last year. This budget maintained all of our services. A lot of this change, obviously, we moved $350,000 from the road paving line from the operating budget to a warrant article. If you looked at that, if you put that $350,000, you can see that what it would basically do is make a flat budget. And again, I think this reflects the collaborative effort of department heads, select board, and budget committee on producing that flat budget. And again, to be totally honest, my job as chair of the budget committee was super easy this year, and that is because we had, I think, a collaborative effort and message between department heads, select board, and budget committee on trying to come up with a flat budget. So the reduction of $358,004 equates to a tax impact of minus 30 cents, or a reduction of $193,000 on a $650,000 home. What I'm showing here is the top 10 operating budget accounts. These accounts make up 85%, or $5.5 million of the total budget appropriation, operating budget. Again, if you look at the highway snow removal line, big reduction, but that's because $350,000 of that budget, highway, the paving, was moved to a warrant. If you look at the finance and town administrator, the town administrator line went up, but that's because we moved a position from the finance account into the town administration account. The police department, there's a 9.7% reduction, and I have more details on that in the next slide, but the chief had, part of it is removing part-time positions. And then under rec, there's an increase of 21%, but again, that is due to last year, the program coordinator was appropriated through a warrant, and that position is now funded in the operating budget. What I'm trying to do here is graphically just show the top accounts. So this is 92% of our budget. There's 14 accounts. And it just tries to, I actually tried to do a pie chart, but there's too many slices and the pie just didn't look very pretty. But it just gives you kind of a visual realization of the size of some of the accounts. Again, if you look at the highway snow removal, which is the fourth one, $350,000 of that was moved to a warrant. So on the police and fire, our police is now staffed. This appropriation is staffed to include 10 full-time members, including the chief, a lieutenant, 2 sergeants, 5 officers, and a full-time administrator. The reduction again came from eliminating a part-time position, as well as there was a vehicle that was, I think, proposed in the appropriation that was removed department. We have 24/7 service coverage with 4 groups of 2 firefighters, 1 full-time and 1 per diem firefighter per group. And we have 6 full-time employees, including the chief, 3 lieutenants, a firefighter, and a secretary. And we have also included a part-time fire inspector. Next, I'm going to, for 2 slides, hand off to Gabby Kelly, who is the head of our sub-team on trash and waste and recycle. And Gabby, I'll give you.
Okay, so I put these 2 slides together because we have a warrant article about continuing manual pickup or switching to automatic. Waste and recycling now costs more than $700,000 in our operating budget, and that is more than 10%. A 6 point something operating budget. Costs have risen, as you can see the little red line, over 50% in the past 2 years, and it's just going to get more expensive. There's more inside of waste and recycling than just picking up our trash. It includes disposal, the transportation, processing fees, and those all will continue to climb. In our research, there's an organization called Waste Zero, and they had this quote that said solid waste is the last unmetered utility. Right now, our municipal solid waste is a flat fee contract, meaning we don't throw away as much or we throw away a lot. We still get charged the same amount. However, our recycling, as recycling revenues or the market for recycling plummets, we pay the difference. Whenever recycling goes up and down, we have a set amount in our contract, and then we pay this difference. And that can be $150 per ton in some months. But the trash talk, which we like to call it, the trash committee, we are hoping to get more time to look into other options that are more cost-friendly, cost-effective, other options that might be more environmentally effective and friendly. And we think, as you can see this little map, this is just one way towns have managed costs while being more environmentally friendly, while incentivizing less waste. And I know we're in Brentwood, we don't want to be Exeter. This is just one example, like I said, of a way towns are doing this. This is pay as you throw. So you have to pay for your trash bags. The more trash bags you use, right, the more it costs you. So there's an incentive to use less trash bags. But there are different ways that other companies, waste removal companies, do this. They might give you a barrel and then you pay for any extra bags. But that is not available as we have it in our Casella contract. We are on year 2 of this 5-year contract, which I think is a good thing. We see it as an opportunity because we have time to look through the options, to get some scenario planning, and to report back to the town some options that we could vote on, that we could see, can we get out of the contract, etc. But supporting the manual pickup means that it gives us more time to find, hopefully, the best long-term solution for our waste and recycling, because no matter if we save the $25,000 this year, we know that costs are going to continue to go up. We have, I think it's 5% in the contract to go up anyways. So if we can take time, look at some other options that might be beneficial for all sorts of people who don't throw away a lot of trash, and families like myself with young kids who have a little bit more trash but are doing what we can to reduce, reuse, recycle. And then to look at how we can better recycle. If any of you have watched that By Now Netflix documentary, we know that recycling isn't like it used to be. We are a single stream recycling town. It means that not a lot of our recycling actually is able to be, it's contaminated. You don't get really any money back anymore for it. Cardboard apparently is the thing that makes money these days, but it means that it would have to be separated. So our goal is to have some public meetings to talk about cost versus effort. Is the town willing to spend the time to separate recycling? Maybe just separate cardboard. Who knows? We don't have those answers yet, but we'd like more time to bring some answers to the community. The $25,000 I think is $13 on a $650,000 home, so $13 of tax impact. That's for a half of a year, so it would be $26 on a full year on a $650,000 home. The thing with the automatic pickup is that yes, we're assigned a barrel for free, but any extra barrels we have to pay for, whether the town would pay for that or they would pass the cost on, and that could be $200 or $300 in an annual fee. So we could sign up personally to save 26 or however much your house is worth, but if you throw away more trash, you might actually not be netting a tax savings because you'd be paying an annual rental fee. That's besides any safety, whatever else goes along with nickel and diming on the automatic pickup. But we know towns have moved that way and dealt with it. I think either way we go, the trash talk committee is committed to still investigating options that we have. Our hope is that we don't save $13 now only to switch to something better later, to switch processes and then switch again. So we hope that the amount savings is worth the time and effort that we're putting in to try to get better options for the community. I think that's it.
Thank you, Gabby. And again, the trash, I believe, is the number 3 right now in terms of cost, in our budget. So it makes sense to spend some time evaluating and reporting back and figuring out the right approach. Thank you. Okay, so I went over the operating budget for 26. This is now the warrant articles for 2026. These are warrant articles with appropriations. On this table, it shows the amount of the warrant and the tax impact on the tax rate, and then the impact on a $650,000 home. So, as Gabby discussed, the first one, the manual waste collection, $24,950. That is to pay for 6 months of manual waste collection. Right now, the operating budget includes 6 months of manual collection and 6 months of automated. So if the legislative body approves this warrant, then we would keep manual for the whole year. If the legislative body votes no, then the town will switch to automated on July 1st. And that's the first one.
Just a quick clarification, when you get 2 barrels, one recycle, one trash. Secondly, it's an additional $24,950, in addition to the manual, it'll be an additional $24,900.
That's correct. So in addition to the appropriation that is in here for the pickup for waste and pickup for recycle, you're correct. It's an additional $24,950 for this year. That's correct. The next warrant is the multipurpose municipal building CRF to add $125,000 to that. Highway vehicles, $150,000. Road repair, again, this is roughly I believe, and Wayne, I don't think he's here, I think he told me, is it 3 miles of Wayne, of roadway?
Yep, I got here 3.7 miles of road.
So it's actually 3.7 miles of roadway for $350,000. Wayne, do you know the roads?
These, I got all the roads. These are the roads that I went around to look at. I went around to look at, 'cause we usually do 2 miles of road a year. When I started as a road agent, we got When I started as a road agent, we started with 250,000, and that did 2 miles of road. We are now, we were getting behind in our roads a few years back. So the select board that was on at that time, we changed it and we went to 350,000. So we had to make sure that we had enough money to be able to finish the roads, and we kept it at still 2 miles of road. It's still 2 miles of road that we do now, that what I'm looking for right now, but I went around and checked to see what roads that I have, and I have like 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 roads. 5 roads that's gonna need some work. And we are still getting new roads. We're not stopping with the roads, we're still building developments, and we're still adding on our roads. So, the select board that's on here, I believe, is the ones that are on here now. It is a couple of years ago, they put this warrant article right into the budget. They thought it'd be the best to do that, which is, I had no problem with that. And then now, the way everything is going up, I think they felt that they ought to take that out and leave it up to the people of what we should do with the roads. And on myself, I hate to see us not to do the roads, because I know there's other towns around that have done that, and you never catch up to them roads to do. So if we keep it at 2 miles of road, which I don't have any problems right now, we can do it, but we'll leave it up to you people to decide what you want to do.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Wayne,
Yes.
the question was, does that include Mill Road or not?
Oh, let me see. Mill Road, I've been trying to find out about Mill Road, okay? And so far what I've got in Mill Road, they still have 2 more years to building houses up in there. And we're not supposed to do anything with Mill Road until they are done in that road. So, I'm trying to find out, I know, the end of Mill Road on Middle Road is getting real bad. And, I was called, back this summer, from, the developer, and wanted to know if I needed any money to do anything with Mill Road. And I told him no. I said, Bell and Flynn is the ones that we usually have, and they were really tied up with work, and it was at the wrong time, because we couldn't get free to go, well, actually we gotta do our room roads that we have. And I told him, no, we better wait. So I've been trying to work something in now. What I'd like to do, I don't know if anyone else wants to do it, but what I'd like to do is, this end of Mill Road is, if we hot top that, if we do, we gotta take that hill out. They wanna take that hill out, cut some of those trees off to try to straighten that road a little bit. So if I could just get some money out of the builder there, get some money out of the builder, I might be able to get that part, get it from 111A to the bridge. Because the trucks don't cross that. They have to go around to South Road and come in the other way. And we might be able to get that part done so it is a lot better, because it's getting pretty rough there, that hill in there, it's getting pretty rough. So that's what I was hoping I could try to get get everybody on board on that and try to see if we can do that part of this summer. And, to start it, but that, like I said, that I talked to the, foreman up there that's up there, he's up there every day in that project. And, he told me they had 2 more, I thought they were almost done, because we got to top of the hill, I said, hey, man, they're way up here already, they're gonna be getting done, but he said, no, they're going back further, and about 2 more years before they're done. So,
Okay, thank you, Wayne. I just wanted to point out, I don't have it on the slide, but on the multipurpose municipal building, CRF, the end of year balance of that account is $124,878. On the highway vehicles equipment, CRF, the end of year balance is $16,051. And on the master plan expendable trust fund, the end of year balance is $8,742. And I have a slide later that summarizes the budget committee's recommendations on all warrant articles, but I have that later in the presentation. This next slide, I just break out the way the select board did the CRF warrant this year, same as last year. The $160,000 warrant is currently listed and split up into several CRFs. Is the IT hardware for $30,000, the revaluation at $25,000, the building maintenance $25,000, vehicle replacements $50,000, and the public radios $30,000. And you can see the tax impact for each one of those amounts and the impact on a $650,000 home. I will list the balance on the IT hardware is currently $52,189. And the revaluation, the balance is $61,354. The building maintenance balance is $72,589. The fire department vehicle replacement, the balance is $0. And on the public safety radios, the end of year balance is $33,438. So this chart is going to show the tax cap maximum appropriation. As you know, we have a 4% tax cap in the town of Brentwood effective this year. The 4% max tax cap was $5,505,061, and that is calculated based on the tax assessment in 2025, and it increases it by 4%. You take out, add back any use of fund balance. In order to establish a maximum appropriation value based on that tax effort, we had to estimate several factors, budget factors. We worked with the budget committee, select board, and then we reviewed with the town administrator, and I also reviewed with the New Hampshire Municipal Association the amount, the guidance that, for the amounts that we were using for assumptions. We used an assumption of a 4% revenue growth. We kept the war service and actual overlay flat. So if you do that, the total maximum appropriation so that we will stay within that tax cap is $7,516,583, which basically gave us a cap space increase of $298,504. And again, that total max value includes budget, operating budget, and all warrants. And then at town meeting, the budget committee will work to assure that anytime we're voting on a warrant, the operating budget, and then any warrant, we just keep track of how much the appropriations have totaled, and we have to make sure that we don't go over this max $7,516,583. And if we do, we'll have to make sure that we notify the moderator that we would then use the proper override procedures as set forth in RSA 32.5B, paragraph 3. Basically, I believe it's a 3/5 majority, and I think at this time it's a ballot vote as well. So this was just to understand for ourselves, for our budgeting purposes, with department heads and select board, what our max appropriation could be of both the budget and warrants. Here I'm showing you for fiscal year 2026, if you put the operating budget and warrants together, the total town budget appropriation is $7,516,583. Excuse me, $7,458,117, which is an increase of $240,038 with a tax impact that's 3.3% increase. The tax impact is 20 cents, and the increase on a $650,000 home is $129.38. This is $58,466 below the voter mandated 4% tax cap. I think the only other thing I would point out on this chart is that there is, if the citizens petition warrant for 200, or whatever the amount was, when that warrant came in, we were at basically a flat budget, but because of that, we are now at a 3.3% increase. So there's some places in here where we talked about trying to get a flat budget, and I believe if you look at the operating budget and warrants as proposed by the select board and then approved by the budget committee, we had a flat budget, or basically a 0.2% increase. All I'm showing here on this chart is a history of the total town appropriation. Just so it's each of those bars just shows the total appropriation amount. This year is being about 7.5 million, and showing a cum percent increase. So since 2021, the cumulative increase has been 43.1%. If you look this year, our increase is 3.3%. Okay, so that's the town appropriation and warrants. Next, I'll switch into over to the Swayze local school budget. I'm not going to read all these numbers, but I am providing them for everyone, for all of you, basically breaking out the appropriations from the article and operating budget, collective bargaining agreements, and any CRFs that they have. And then I'm showing the revenue offsets, and then the local school assessment, which is what basically shows up on the tax card. That's what our tax bill will be based on. I want to highlight that this year, the SAU presented the school board 3 budgets. Option 1, which had a 6.14% increase, and option 2 had a 5.4% increase, and option 3 had a 3.4% increase. The school board approved option 3, which had the lowest increase of the 3 options. The operating budget of $7,858,303 includes food service expenditures as well as, food services and grant expenditures. Now this year the grant was put actually into the operating budget, but it's offset. If you look, the line, it offsets in the revenues. But the total increase in appropriations is 5.36%. And the total appropriation of $8,086,563 is an increase of $597,848, or 7.98%. But after the revenues are reduced, the local school assessment is $7,496,349, or an increase of $462,139, 6.57%. And the tax impact of that increase is 38 cents per thousand, or $249.09 on a $650,000 home. The key budget drivers in that Swayze budget, obviously healthcare costs continue to rise. The total budget increase included $288,760 in health and dental insurances, representing the largest single cost driver. There's a bond payment of $115,219, which is offset by approximately $36,000 in estimated solar savings. I mentioned the grant appropriation, so now the $135,709 is moved to the district level where it was used to be at the SMU level. So it shows up in the appropriation for the Swayze School, but it's offset with a grant amount. So it's actually revenue neutral. It has no tax impact, but it does make your appropriation go up. The approved budget that they have eliminated an unfilled teacher position, resulting in one grade with 2 teachers and tighter class sizes. There's also a collective bargaining agreement warrant, Article 1, and it's a 4-year agreement that has wage increases of 3.25%, 3.5%, 3.5%, and 3.25% over the 4-year period. Again, so in this year, set teacher salary increases are not in the operating budget warrant line 1, it's actually in the warrant article, the collective bargaining agreement warrant article as a separate line, separate warrant. We have projected 283 students, and they're doing careful class size planning, and we continue to see that the Swayze students are outperforming state averages significantly in ELA, math, and science assessments. This is a similar chart that I showed to the town. It's the assessment history. So this is looking at the actual school assessment. So this is your appropriations less your revenue. This is what our tax bills are actually based on. Again, the red line is a cumulative increase since 2021. There's been a 29% cumulative increase. The increase in 2026 is 6.6%. And the dip that's in 2022 was because there was a bond, that was the last bond. There was a bond, I think it was a $4 million bond for 20 years that was released in 2021. So there was $352,000 less in 2022 due to that bond, the payment not being in there. Now, this is the co-op school budget. I put in red on the side. Again, budget committee, we don't have any purview on the co-op budget. It's shown here for informational purposes since it will affect the tax effort. The total co-op tax assessment is $66.5 million, or an increase of $2.9 million, 4.5%. The Brentwood portion is 15.14%, and that's $10.1 million, up $324,000, or 3.3%. The tax impact of that is 27 cents, or $174.39 on a $650,000 home. This is the breakout of the major changes in the co-op school budget. Similar to Swayze, the health and dental insurance, and then the salary increase, total $2.3 million, or 90% of the total increase. This is the co-op appropriation history, school assessment history. Over the since 2021, the increase has been 14.1%, and in 2026 it was 3.3%. This is just highlighting the proposed budget from the co-op school versus the default budget. So this is when we go to vote on the budget. If the budget proposed fails, a default budget is automatically enacted, and the default budget is $72,384,095. It's $741,429 less. And our piece of that, if the default budget was put in place, our portion would be $9.95 million versus the proposed $10.1 million. And the tax impact of this default assessment would be an increase of 18 cents or $113.86 on a $650,000 home. And again, I just have the comparison. So with the proposed budget, it's 27 cents. If the default budget was enacted, it would be 18 cents. Okay, now I'm going to shift to the estimated tax effort. And I believe a lot of us want to know, what is all of these budget numbers going to mean on my tax bill this fall? And for the town portion, this requires making educated assumptions regarding the 2026 financials. And again, remember, we just finished month 1 of 2026. So we worked as a group to come up with, and it was basically budget committee, select board, and town administrator that agreed on these assumptions. We have a 4% revenue growth. We've had a 5.5% average annual growth over the last 10 years. Last year's was just under 4%. So we went with a 4% conservative revenue growth. We're not assuming any use of unreserved fund balance. We used $335,611 last year on warrants at town meeting. We left the war service credits, which are basically the tax credits that we give to our veterans. Actual overlay has to do with abatements. So we kept both of those flat. And then we assumed a 1% growth in total assessed property values. They've been averaging about 1.7% since 2019. So again, a little bit conservative, but I'd rather be conservative and give you a number that's a little bit higher than what you're gonna get in the fall. So the tax effort impacts the tax rate that will be set in November of 2026. And we're showing, again, you've seen on these charts, we're looking at a $650,000 home, which is up from the average home that we were using of between $400,000 and $450,000 because of the reassessment that we had this year. So on the total town tax effort, it's $5.45 million, or it's up $488,877, or 9.86%. And what that would equate to on the tax rate is a 36-cent increase, or $234.43 on a $650,000 home. And again, these numbers assume that all warrants and the operating budget are approved as presented tonight. And the only other thing to point out is that this 9.86% increase, this is really being triggered because last year we used that $335,000 out of fund balance to lower the town tax effort. If we had used a similar amount this year, then the increase in the town would only be 2.9%. This is the estimated education tax effort. If you look at the total local education tax effort, yes, the assessment will be $14,569,831, which is up $814,577 from last year, or 5.9%. This equates to a tax rate of $11.96, or an increase of 56 cents, 4.9%. The local ed tax bill on a $650,000 home would be $7,775, or a $361 increase. And then I just break out of that $7,775, the portion that is Swayze versus co-op on both the tax rate and the tax bill. And again, this assumes that all warrants and budgets pass as presented, and that the co-op budget passes, and it's not a default budget. Here I'm estimating the county apportionment. I used a 6.5% increase, which was the same as last year. And again, I'm being overly, I would say, conservative in giving you a number that is probably gonna be higher than the actual, because if you look at the last 10 years, the average annual growth of the county's assessment has been 2.4%. But in recent years, it's increased to 3.6%. That was from 2021 to 2025, but then last year, the county increased by 6.5%. So I'm taking the lowest risk view and really overvaluing. I used that 6.5% again for this year, so that raises that amount to $735,500. And that would be a tax rate increase of, would be a tax rate of 60 cents or an increase of 3 cents, $20.25 on a $650,000 home. And on the state education tax rate, the SWEP tax, I got that from the New Hampshire Department of Education. It's $1,229,319, which is $1.04, no change from 2025. And again, on that statewide education property tax, the full amount of that is actually used as an offset to our local school vendor. So this is, I'm just showing this year's tax rate is $17.13 per thousand, or $11,134 on a $650 home. We had a reassessment, which resulted in a 60% average increase in property values. Our total assessed values in the town now are $1.2 billion. So the tax increase that we all saw was a combination of budget impact and a change in assessed property values, but the average increase was 8.4%. If you take all the previous slides that I showed, the estimated tax effort, the new tax rate in 2026 will be $18.07, which is an increase of 94 cents or 5.5%. And I'm giving you all the split up that I already went through, but you can see the town rate is up 36 cents, the county is up 3 cents, the local education is up 56 cents, and the state education basically stays the same. So it's a 94-cent total increase. If you take those tax rates, now put it to a $650,000 average property, that becomes a tax bill of $11,748, which is an increase of $613.96. Again, it's 5.5%. And then I have here the breakout of each of the pieces. You can see the municipal is 2907, county 393, local education 7,775, and state education $674. I think this is one of my final slides. This is the recommendations. The budget committee by law is required to either recommend or not recommend any warrant article that has an appropriation. On warrants that have no appropriation, we are not allowed to give a recommendation like the select board can. So the budget committee recommends all of the warrants that were presented, except for the additional firefighter. The motion actually failed. We had a 3-3 vote on the recommendation. So it will be listed in the town report that 3 recommended, 3 did not recommend, and 1 abstained. And again, Andy, thank you for that, because I really was confused on what to do with that one. Oh, and the budget committee did recommend the Swayze local school budget and all warrants. There's some important meeting and voting dates. The Swayze district meeting is Monday, March 3rd, 6 p.m. at the the Swayze School, and that's where we will vote on the Swayze local school budget. Oh, typo, thank you. None of us picked that up, and it went through a review. Sorry, it's Monday, March 2nd, 6 p.m. And that's where we vote on the Swayze local school budget and warrant articles. Tuesday, March 10th is the Brentwood Town School and Co-op election at the Swayze School, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's where we'll be, obviously, that's where we vote for the local candidates, cooperative school district budget, and other warrant articles. And I have in bold here, please vote yes on the planning board's proposed zoning ordinances. I'm speaking with my own hat and not as a budget committee member. And the town planner handed me, Mark Kennedy handed me this, and I'd like to read it because he went to our attorney to find out about what happens if the residents vote no on the proposed zoning ordinances. And what she said was, the statute preempts local zoning. So if the zoning amendments do not pass, multifamily buildings will be permitted use on all property in town that is commercially zoned, which is defined in the statute as zoned for such commercial activities as retail and office space as of July 1st of this year. So basically what's happening, the state did change the laws, and our planning board has worked really hard to come up with zoning ordinances that will meet the state law but protect our communities. So again, I urge you to vote yes on those zoning board proposals.
The end of that. Yeah, the end is even more important.
Yeah,
If
okay.
it fails,
Presumably, the zoning amendments you have proposed provide some regulations for those multifamily uses to keep them out of areas where air, noise, odor, or transportation impacts from abutting industrial or manufacturing uses might be incompatible, or to require all available ground floor space or a percentage thereof to be dedicated to retail or similar uses. If your amendment fails, those protections will not be in place, and multifamily will simply be an unrestricted permitted use in commercial zoned areas. There will be no negotiation. If the planning board denies an application for multifamily on commercially zoned properties because the zoning amendments failed, the town will be taken to court or the HAB, and it will lose. And the chances of the developer being awarded attorney fees in addition to a builder's remedy are very high. And again, this is from our town attorney. Okay, no, you're welcome. And again, it's really important for our town that we vote yes. Like I said, the planning board worked really hard on coming up with this, and we need to support this. Finally, on Saturday, March 14th, is at 9 a.m. is the town meeting where we will vote on our town operating budget and warrant articles. And I believe that's the end of what I had, and I would open it up to the public for questions, comments, suggestions. Yeah, I think what we should do is just have you come up to the microphone and state your name for the record.
Is the mic on? Oh, yes. What is the actual number that Swayze is asking for? I got confused over that slide.
The operating budget,
That they're asking for. What's the total number they're asking for, yeah? Operating budget.
$7,858,303. And then there's Article 2 CBA.
Just the 303, yeah?
Yep. Anything else?
If anybody in this room has access to a calculator, any type of modern technology, I urge them. That 7,858,303. In October, there was a snapshot of the student population. at Swayze came in at 272, assuming that no more children come in, no more children are reduced in that number. If I divide that number by 272, now that includes 13 preschoolers, okay? That gives me a number, the cost per student for Swayze School, okay? They came in with results, performance results of 75% math, 75% reading, meaning 1 in 4 kids is failing at Swayze. I'll just throw that out. Last night, historically, the SAU 16, the Exeter Regional Cooperative School District, asked for and got $76,450,000. They have a snapshot of 2,248 kids this year. If I take that 76,450,000 divided by the 2,248 kids, that gives you a cost per student. They also gave performance results last night for the middle and the high school. 1 out of 2 kids cannot perform at proficiency grade level in math or science, both in the middle school and the high school. This is what our tax dollars are getting us. Lastly, you gave a slide here that shows between the county and the school and the town, we're averaging 5.5% increase, somewhere around there. Yep, back on there. 5.5% increase, we're averaging. Our taxes will double in 13 years, based on that number. 13 years from now, will anyone in this room be alive? Do you want to pay twice the amount of taxes you're paying right now without any changes to what we're doing currently? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold.
Hi, Jen Jones, Lyford Lane. With the changes that have occurred with us having 3 different town administrators over the past couple of years, I just wanted to bring up something to the budget committee that I had briefly mentioned to them at their prior meeting before this meeting. I understand that the budget committee might not necessarily want to make a change to the budget, but just to make sure that the select board members in the room and the budget committee is aware. I'm concerned that some of our ARPA pledges have not been accounted for appropriately in our budgeting. Specifically, the way our ARPA worked is we had to pledge all of the money by the end of December 2024, which we did, and that money has to be spent by the end of 2026, so the end of next year. With the money that we had left over, because of the unbelievable rise in trash and recycling, the board last year decided to use the remaining money in ARPA to offset recycling for the 2025 year and the 2026 year, and I just did not see that reflected in this year's budget. So when you look at last year's budget, we budgeted recycling at $99,000 relative to the cost. I think the budgeted cost last year was $143,000 or something like that. So if the budget committee was so inclined to match what we did last year, they could drop the budget for recycling, which is currently listed as $150,203, down to $106,574, which would be accounting for $43,629 of ARPA. That money has already been officially pledged and declared, and so can't be changed. Has to be used on recycling only. And if we do not use it, my understanding is we do have to return it to the federal government. So whether or not you change the budget, I mean, it's a very small number, $43,000 out of a $7 million budget, but just to make sure that there's an awareness that with all of the changes that we've had in town, we really need to make sure that we don't lose those ARPA funds.
Thank you. That is an excellent suggestion. The appropriations that were provided from the select board are what you're seeing here. The question about ARPA funds did come up in our meeting, but I don't think we got a clear answer. In fact, I'll have to go back. I thought it was in May or April when I first started. I went to NHMA asking about how do appropriations work with ARPA funding, And I'm pretty sure he told me that the ARPA appropriations go into the budget. But that said, there needs to be some, if that's the case, there would have to be an offsetting in revenue somewhere to offset it. Now, what you're saying might be true, if that's true, the case, that there isn't, that it's treated kind of like an encumbrance, where you have a different account for anything that's ARPA related, then you're absolutely correct. Then this amount should be reduced and taken out of the operating budget. What I would recommend that we do, and the select board, I think what we should do is get a real answer on this and find out about the ARPA funds. And then we can make a motion at town meeting to adjust the total operating budget down by whatever amount we have to do based on ARPA, because maybe this isn't the only account. I'd have to look and see if there were other places, but I think that's
Yeah, the only other one that I know of where we reduced the budget because we didn't need to raise the money from the taxpayers was when it came to the debt service. Because usually we use fire impact fees to drop that line item. I don't know if you did that this year. Letty, do we know if the select board did that? So the two that I'm aware of where we purposely dropped the appropriation request to the public is usually ARPA and impact fees, because we have other revenue. We don't need to raise that money from the taxpayers. It doesn't look to me like either one of those were maybe done this year. Like I said, it's not big dollars. We just need to make sure that we use those alternate sources of funding, because every dollar that we use out of those pots, we don't have to raise from the taxpayer.
okay. Again, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention, and we definitely will investigate that. And I think, again, the appropriate response would be to, we did kind of handle this last year. I remember the select board did make an amendment to the operating budget to lower it down, but for some other reason, but I think that would be the appropriate thing to do, is to come up with the exact number, and then we amend the operating budget at town meeting down based on whatever findings we get. But thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Should Miller and Dudley Road, to get more clarity on the waste situation. So it's 1 cans or 2 cans are included, and so they're gonna come up with a truck, latch onto the can and flip it in the back. And so even one says recycling, you won't be able to use it for other things. I'm just trying to get clarity on it, because, I've heard it's gonna cost $200 a year, we're gonna have to buy the original one, we're not gonna have to buy the original one. What are the rules and regulations?
So, from my understanding, you get one trash bin, one recycling bin. The trash bin is either a 65 gallon or a 95 gallon. You can swap them once, but there are additional costs for for any extra bins, trash. I don't know about recycling, and I know that this was discussed at select board, but I do think that from what I know, that the town has options of how much they charge the townspeople for extra bins, if they keep that, if they roll that cost into the operating budget. I know another town that was considering switching to automated, did a review of their households and found that of I think it was 9,000 households, 2,000 needed extra buckets, and at $200 a bucket, that's 40 grand. So if the town decided to pay for that, there goes most of your, $50,000 savings. So I think that there are still pieces of this switching to automatic that the select board would have to decide on, to my knowledge. And so I can't give you an exact answer of, what the actual impact
We're
might
gonna
be.
be voting on this at town meeting, but will we have, exactly how this breaks out on the automatic side? What it's gonna cost, how many we can have, can I buy as many cans as I want?
Yes, I know that the select board or the town administrator have been working with the trash company to come up with a flyer and possibly even send something out to people before town meeting so that they have more information about what the switch to automated could look like. There was some discussion 2 weeks ago at a select board meeting about what that might look like, including that, how that additional fee for additional bins would work. But no decisions have been made right now.
Do you think they'll be made before we vote?
I am one of 5. I can certainly make the request that we have more solid information before town meeting, yes.
Because since we've heard about this, I've been taking a survey as I drive down the road on Wednesdays. And I'm not sure anybody on the road except me and my neighborhood would ever get under two barrels, but I might be wrong. So we've gotta have information to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. So, yeah, one last chance, anybody, any questions at all? I mean, Chad, I will say this, oh, thank you. We did speak to, we had our trash talk team meeting last week, and I did speak to Casella, and what he explained to me was that, as everyone's saying, select board will have to come up with a trash policy, which we do have one now, but it would have to be updated if we were gonna go to automated. And I believe was it Hudson, Gabby, do you remember? I think, he said it was, he pointed me to another town to look at, I think it was Hudson.
I do, if anybody wishes, I can email you. I do have the flyer for the automatic trash collection for the town of Hudson that I can send you. That would be likely similar to something that they would put together for us, or that maybe is in the process of being put together, that we've talked about the container placement, where it is, if it's not in the right spot, it won't get picked up, if there's stuff outside of it, it won't get picked up, if it's blown open, and, you know, like, stuff that happens now. But I do have that flyer, that's 2 pages. If you would like it, I can take your email and I can send you that link. Or you can Google Hudson automatic trash collection.
And the only thing I will add on the trash was that he mentioned that in most towns, there's the fee for the extra barrel. He said that the town will, normally the town passes that fee on to the person who gets the barrel, and in many cases, so in our case, I think they told us it was $200 for a barrel. They might, in other towns, they would charge $250 or $300, because in addition to having the extra barrel, you're also creating extra tonnage. So anyways, he said this is something that the select board would have to decide. And yes, and that fee is per year. And then the last thing that he told me was that on recycling, the big cardboard, when you go to automated, today we're very fortunate, I know I am, if we have a big box, I just kind of put it next to the barrel and they throw it in the truck. It will have to fit into the 95-gallon container, so we heard like feedback that in some places people get frustrated because they spend a lot of time cutting cardboard to try to get it to fit into
And that's the biggest revenue
Right.
for recycling, so hopefully
So, yeah.
we can figure something out with that.
Hi, Jeff Donald, Middle Road. I just had a quick question, and maybe it was in the full warrant article list and not in the abbreviated one that you used. But it looks like regional associations has been zeroed out. Have we not spent any money on that?
Oh, no, regional association is a line under welfare now. It used to be its own.
Alright,
No, it is not, hold on, I'll get it up there. Yeah, there's a line called welfare.
okay.
So we have a budget of, we approved $21,168. That includes regional association, and
It used to be its own department,
correct, that's,
and that's why
That's still on there.
I
Alright,
think the welfare director's here, so, she would let us know if we didn't fund the regional. Thank you, great question, thank you.
I just want to thank Jim. This was his first year on the committee, and he did volunteer to be chair, and he's done an outstanding job. I can't even guess how many hours he's put into all of this, so I just want to thank him on behalf of the committee for taking that role and taking it and doing it so well.
Yeah, my privilege, I'm happy to do it for all of us, so, again, no other questions? Great. Thank you so much. Do we have to vote to close? I didn't hear any, I did not hear anything, so I think we need a motion to close the meeting. Oh. Yeah, so we're actually closing the public hearing, and I'll just remind everyone that town meeting, please, if you can, attend town meeting. It's important to vote on these warrants and budget. And then we're going to ask if there's any public comment, because we had a budget committee meeting prior to this. If there's any public comments on budget committee in general, we'll take those right now.